The facts are the facts. And the fact is that this press corps does not reflect the diversity of the city, and it makes a difference in the kinds of coverage. We're having a powerful and important conversation around systemic racism in every institution. And the press and the media can't be exempt from that conversation.
Juan, this is overwhelming zero-sum racial bias on her part, and there's no way around that. I don't understand how she wants to exclude an entire racial category of reporters who might ask her some very important questions. How do you feel about this?
I think she's gotten to a very important point, Kennedy. I think it's hard to argue that the legacy, the old school major media platforms in Chicago are overwhelmingly white and male. I don't think we can argue that. I think she wants to make a point of encouraging diversity in the media. It's just that she's not doing it effectively. Instead, she opens the door to people to say something, you know, like, oh, this is reverse racism. Well, obviously, the status quo, it might be described as real racism. What she's doing, though, is ineffective, I say, because it would be more effective if she said something like, I'm going to give interviews to younger people, you know, at more of the minority outlets. I'm going to give a greater share to them, because then it wouldn't come across in this way. It wouldn't allow her critics to suddenly scream reverse racism. Or she could use the interviews with anybody to talk about the need to invite more voices to be heard on life and politics in Chicago. That would be more effective. I think it's just ham-handed.
That's a really good point, Juan. And when I read this story, Dana, the first thing I thought is, well, why not go to the journalism schools at University of Chicago and Northwestern and, you know, go back a few steps and make sure that their outreach and their recruiting includes a number of different voices. This just seems like she's protecting herself from certain reporters asking certain questions, Dana.
She was trying to get some good press for her 2-year mark after her inauguration there. I remember, especially as she really tried to make sure that the schools could reopen in Chicago, there was no show that covered it more than the ones here at Fox News. Like, thought she had a great point, like really helping to drive it. And to my thinking, whenever you're trying to communicate, you like, what's your goal? What do you want to achieve? She wants to get good press about her 2 years. Okay, great. So then how are you going to do that? But then by taking it to this step, she's basically just modeled all of that. And now no one's talking about the 2-year tenure. Everyone's just talking about this. So one, I think that was completely ineffective, as Juan said. But also, I think it gets increasingly difficult to figure out who then is going to qualify for her under her categories. Because the Latino reporter that was offered the interview declined to do it. And he said, actually, I think that her policy is wrong. I'm not going to do it. And when you look at the census, especially for younger Americans, as they start to be asked a question, how do you identify? Well, many of them are of mixed race. And it's like, well, are you white? Are you brown? I don't know. To me, a blind test in terms of who is a reporter, who's a good reporter, that would be a better way to go about this.
Absolutely. So, Jesse, how are things going in Chicago? Swimmingly, I assume.
Not well. What was it last weekend? 37 people shot, 6 kids. I know that doesn't matter to me who asks her questions, black, white, purple. You got to ask her about how she's going to stop the bloodshed on the South Side, right? Well, who cares who asks her the question? She can have women ask. She can have the foreign press ask. Notice who she doesn't let ask her questions: a conservative. Conservative reporter is probably the most discriminated reporter there. You put a tenacious conservative, you give them access to City Hall, they will take her apart in 10 minutes in a live shot. 10 minutes. It's all you need, because she doesn't have a plan. And this is just a distraction to divert from a really bloody summer. And my other question is, why isn't the liberal media hiring more black reporters? She said they're underrepresented. Well, who does the hiring? It's all the liberal newspaper barons. They do the hiring in Chicago. All the network affiliates run by liberals. Why aren't rich, white, so-called open-minded liberals hiring black reporters?
Katie?
Yeah, this mayor is not engaged in reverse racism. She's just engaged in racism by choosing people to cover her as a government official based on their skin color, and maybe she should be more focused on black victims in her city being shot by the dozens every weekend, rather than focusing on this absurd equity argument that has poisoned any kind of logical thought in big cities around the country. When you're engaging in this equity argument, you have to discriminate against somebody, some people, in order to make your case for whatever diversification of whatever group of people you're trying to engage in. And so somebody eventually has to sue over these things, because it's a violation of the Civil Rights Act. You can't discriminate against people based on race. And if you just go based on merit and pick the best person for the job, well, then everybody gets a fair shot.
We'll see if there is solidarity within the Chicago press. Thank you.